Hello, everybody. We are back. You either just listened to an interview that I conducted with the Uncommitted campaign, or this is a new episode and you just listened to that bonus episode. Either way, it's Thursday, March 7th. This is Chapo Trap House. I'm Will Menaker. We are back. Let's get to it. So, listeners, on today's show, we will be discussing the culture and politics across the Atlantic in a major European country. Now, listener, whenever we notice things across the Atlantic or talk about Europe, it's usually to make fun of how annoying and evil the cursed Anglo is. But you know what? We've done enough of that over the course of this show, and there's another major European country that is really, honestly, about as annoying and evil as England. I'm talking about Germany, who's really, over the last couple months, have really come out to shine and show the world who they really are. And who they still are, rather. So joining us to discuss Germany is a podcast about Germany, based in Germany, but thank God does not feature any Germans. Please welcome from the show Corner Späti, Ciarán, and Nick. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Stuck here, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only downside is that doing fine, but I'm in the eternal hellhole that is the Nazi continuation state that is the Bundesrepublik Deutschland. So, yeah.
So, Ciarán and Nick, for our listeners, I'll start with you, Ciarán. Could you tell us a little bit about your show and sort of where you're from and how you ended up being in Germany?
So 2008, the economy fucking shits the bed, and Ireland has decided it's run out of jobs, and we can no longer be addicted to mortgages. So more or less what happened there. And then I come to Germany for work because Germany has decided that it's going to let the rest of Europe burn to sustain itself. And yeah, I get a piece of that pie. But yeah, no, Corner Späti is a podcast about Europe, the Asian peninsula with a superiority complex. And we've been doing this for 5 years now, and we live in Berlin, a wonderful city, unfortunately, that is German. Did I miss anything, Nick?
No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you did have a mortgage addiction that I was unaware of, but that sounds...
I love getting mortgages.
Yeah, I got bored in the U.S., thought of the dumb bored U.S. Thing of Europe seems cool, and I moved here, and I got stuck here. 10, 11 years later, still kicking it in Berlin. Luckily, I mean, I'm one of those extra sick fucks who has dual citizenship with, the U.S. and Italy, because you can just make up being Italian and the Italians will believe you. So I pretty much did that, and just with I don't know, 2021, just moved here. Every one of my friends joined the military mostly. So it was kind of either join the military, go to school somewhere else, or go to school somewhere else, and that somewhere else is not the United States. And I tried that one way or the other and ended up here. So yeah.
In your social group, the two options were join the military or become German, but really, what's the difference?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
So, Ciarán, for you as coming from Ireland, and Nick, for you coming from the United States, what is for our audience who maybe have never lived in Germany or don't have any German relatives or just doesn't have much experience with the country of Germany, from an outsider's perspective, how would you describe adapting to the German culture? How would you describe Germany or Germans as a people, as opposed to what you're used to?
Oh man, Jesus, what a wonderful question. First of all, I have to get my Irish grievances out, which is the fucking milk is shite. But god awful milk. No, but other than that, geez, I think the most German interaction I've ever had is probably someone yelling at me for crossing the road while the light is still red while he's on a bike not wearing a helmet, and it's just they pretend they care about the rules, but really they just want to be right.
Yeah, I mean, I just my small exposure to German culture, I got the sense that they really not so much following rules, but making other people follow rules. I'm like probably in the last like 5-10 years of my life, the maddest any other person has been at me was a Berlin cab driver when I hit a vape in his car, and he was like, "It's not allowed."
You can't do that. You cannot do that.
It's just vapor. What?
No, it's like Germany, and like, yeah, you can like piss on a tree nearby or like clip your toenails in public in this wonderful city, Berlin, baby. But like, no, you cannot hit a vape in a taxi cab. Absolutely
How dare
not.
you? Yeah. I mean, the funniest one is especially like the crossing the street one, where like the Germans are like, oh, you don't cross the street on red, like with the little Ampelmann being red, because children may be nearby and they may like follow the wrong example, but the parents will always be like nearby, and you're like, that's the parents' job to like tell the kid, hey, don't be a badass like this guy, crossing while the Ampelmann tells you not to. But yeah, like there's that one. There's like other things too that then like maybe you've realized this more, Ciarán, with having a kid, of like Germans have the most like I was talking with your wife about this actually, about like how absolutely psychotic they're like child rearing generally is. Like they'll be like, oh yeah, like my kid like can't play with plastic, and like they're just like the most like anti-vaxxer type of people that you'll like ever meet half the time. It'll be like, oh yeah, like my kid they like pretends to be like so progressive, this and that, and then just like hearing like horror stories from other parents, from like the same hippie parents, like berating them for being a single mom. Like, what, there is no father? Like, what do you mean there's like, like you're like pure Aryan, like your kid's Turkish? What? Like, it's like to like, it's everything is so close to like being like, I mean, to be very fair, like a lot of that like child rearing crap like literally comes from the Nazis, some of it, like the obsession with like,
they put their kinders in gardens. What's up with that?
Yeah, but like all the hippy dippy, like don't play with
a lot of outdoor
toys
play. Yeah, a lot of hiking and being in the nature and things like that.
No, they're like just the ultimate kind of contradiction, right? Of like Germany will simultaneously be like this country of like, we're all engineers. My favorite thing is to watch a train go by, things like that. And then at the same time, like, will very proudly tell you that they've invented homeopathy. And like, you can cure all illnesses with tea.
I mean, honestly, like this contradiction is just perfectly encapsulated by the German Green Party, which has got to be one of the strangest major political parties in the world. I want to get a breakdown of like Germany's political currents, but before I get into Germany, I did lie at the beginning of the show. I do have one item that I suspect both of you guys will have a take on, that I just feel compelled to bring up on this show because it pertains to England. And that is, of course, Labour leader Keir Starmer's comments about actor and rapper Ice-T. And now, no, he did not make these comments with a time machine. He made them this week. This is
right.
Yeah, Keir Starmer's a real body count fan. Like,
this is in an interview with the magazine this week. I'm just going to read for this. It says, when pressed for an example of a public figure with such a corrosive effect on youth, Starmer was less the evasive sphinx his critics proclaim him to be, and more the passionate communicator so fondly recalled by his robed former colleagues. Ice-T, he snapped. Sensing our bemusement, he wasted no time in elaborating. My son is 15. He loves computer games. Vic likes to keep an eye on our kids' social media accounts to make sure they're safe. And one day she comes to me and shows me my son's Twitter profile. He's been sharing this truly vile stuff from a man called Ice-T.
Okay, we all need to be mutuals with Keir Starmer's son on Twitter.
I follow Ice-T on Twitter, and like, the truly vile content, I'm just trying to wonder, like, what is he referring to? Because, like, he's just sort of like, Ice-T's content on Twitter is just like, I'm not a hater, just a lot of shit don't impress me. Just like, this is...
Horny posting about his wife, too.
Yeah.
I thought a lot of it was just that, like how much he fucking just loves Coco.
But it's like perfect, because the ultimate way to describe Keir Starmer is he's like a maths teacher trying too hard to rap with you. Like literally the scene of like turning the chair backward.
Around.
Yeah, absolutely. He uses the word rap to mean talk. Yeah.
It goes on, though. He says, I don't watch much telly, so I thought, hang on, why is he sharing stuff from a drink? He laughed. but I soon discovered that he's an American entertainer, rapper, actor, whatever else, and he was running a network of abusive users online called the Final Level Twitter Gang. He posted all sorts of rubbish, swear words, illegal activities. It was affecting the way my son was behaving. We had to take his phone off him. Labor is looking at ways we can really beef up the Malicious Communications Act so we can stop this kind of thing before someone gets seriously hurt.
I'm so glad the British state is stopping Ice-T.
I mean, this is really like a perfect encapsulation of the modern Labor Party, sort of greenlighting the Miscommunications Act to stop Ice-T from spewing rubbish. Keir Starmer's son's 15 years old. I think he can hear a fucking curse word every now and again.
I'm really hoping that under Keir Starmer's like prime ministership, we get like the kind of like international criminal court rules that apply to like Vladimir Putin if he sets foot in South Africa, but like it's Ice-T setting foot in the UK, immediately arrested.
I just like when he says like dangerous illegal activities. It's like in England is just like, is being cool publicly like just a crime now?
Oh
like,
yeah,
that's
absolutely, yeah.
For Starmer's UK,
I feel that level of I was about to say entfremdung because my brain doesn't work anymore. Just like separation between like there's times where I think like, oh yeah, Europe knows of this thing in the US and they'll be like, what? Ice-T, what are you talking about? But then they'll be like, oh, like, do you love Modern Family? And I'm like, no, for God fucking sake, I've never watched this show. But it's like the most popular thing in or like I have seen probably every episode of Modern Family and The Big Bang Theory in this country just because it's been on TV.
But like the German dub. Yeah.
Either like Netflix or the German dub, doesn't matter, but it's just like German or just Europe just like gets like weird things. And you know what? I'm giving Keir Starmer here the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Ice-T never made it over to the UK. You know, like just like how apparently all their great, like you always like will like talk to a British person like, oh yeah, the US gets all the bad British like pop stars and whatnot. I'm like, what? Like I'm glad that we don't have like Robbie Williams and we're not like the Germans.
In England, the Law and Order Special Victims Unit is just called Normal Victims Unit.
They replaced they got a Welshman on instead to like say, damn, that's.
I had to get that thing in about Keir, and what an embarrassing country England is. But how about these Germans though? I mean, like Ciarán, Nick, I was just sort of happy to continue ignoring Germany as they institute the Fourth Reich and take over Europe and bleed to death all the other European countries so that they can have their nice manufacturing economy, which they're also getting rid of as well now, apparently. But,
yeah, it's all going to you guys, you sick fucks. Stop stealing our jobs.
I hate how often I have to explain that when I say IRA these days, I mean Inflation Reduction Act. It's only my accent. It is only my accent that I have to explain this. Everyone just gets to say IRA and they know what they mean.
But like obviously, like Germany's reaction to world events, particularly like after October 7th, is like they're really I don't know, they're letting it all out of this thing that's like been simmering under the surface for a long time, and I guess like Germany, like they've appointed for themselves a moral authority to speak about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism because they did the Holocaust, and it's just sort of like obviously. Jewish people or Israelis in particular, they get to speak first. Everything that they say has to be taken as the gospel truth. And then Germans have appointed like a role for themselves right underneath Jewish people as like the world's foremost authority on anti-Semitism or the state of Israel. So like how did this come to be? And how do Germans like conceive of this? Is this just like a way they can tell people to shut up and not get mad at them?
Are you talking about like the actual official government role of this or like the made up German one? Because I'm a little bit confused right now. There actually is an official government role for this, which is like the Antisemitismusbeauftragte, which is like a brand new thing. And then there's like the German, like just the vibe. Like,
okay, let's start with the official government role because like they've appointed themselves sort of like the protectors, and I want to say not of Jewish people, but of the state of Israel, because they're actually prosecuting German Jews right now for speaking out in solidarity with Palestine.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it kind of is. The thing that then I've come to realize more and more like lately is that it's actually for neither one of these groups. It is only for themselves. And it's like, it is really just to be like, one, it's like a pat on the back, but it really is in the sense of like, well, you know, the Germans need a method of this, like of how to police this guilt in some way. And so there is, like, the thing that then's the weirdest thing is that the Antisemitismusbeauftragte, which, say that 5 times fast, it is one word, is an official government position that then was appointed during Merkel's like last cabinet, if I'm not mistaken, to like monitor anti-Semitism. So Germany has an anti-Semitism czar, which is a Christian German person in every single case that one of these people exists in, and they're one of the genuinely like one of the guys, Felix Klein, for example, who's like the federal level one, and then every state has their own self, like, kind of more or less appointed one. It's like the you're the good boy to Israel sort of job. But, you know, it's an official German position. And what they kind of do is that then they monitor the discussion in the sense of like, oh, well, you can't say this because this makes us Germans feel bad about this crime that we did. And it's a really like an official position to kind of transform the discussion about what is actual anti-Semitism into the sense of, you are hurting the feelings of the ancestors of SS officers, and that makes us sad. And I like, this is one of the weirdest things, is that it has nothing at the end of the day to do with then combating anti-Semitism in a country that then has a massive problem with right-wing Nazi extremism that then, surprise, surprise, still attacks synagogues and still commits a lot of anti-Semitic crimes. The Antisemitismusbeauftragte doesn't have much to say half the time about this. It is particularly on like imported anti-Semitism from Muslims, Palestinians, you know, whatever it may be. But the thing that's even the weirdest thing about Felix Klein is that then he is not only just Christian, he is like one of these weird type of Christians, like that thinks that you need to like convert Jews to Christianity to like save them, which is anti-Semitic. Like,
yeah, like literal anti-Semitism. And I have another one about these sort of anti-Semitism commissioners here. This is a guy named Salzborn. And he says here, an extended in-person interview granted to the Berlin Morgenpost in March 2002, the same month in which he refused to speak to Jewish currents, citing COVID-19 concern. Salzborn said that while he is not Jewish, he grew up with parents who decided on Jewish life partners. Salzborn refused to offer further clarification on those Jewish figures were and the role they played in his life, saying through a spokesperson that these questions were personal. So what, like, he's Jewish because his parents had Jewish partners? I don't know. Like,
we never got
too hard. I'm Jewish now. That's what it pretty much seems like.
Yeah.
there is this kind of sense of where, like, to an extent, like, Germany has positioned itself, like you were saying, Will, like, below Israelis on who like gets to say this, and specifically, but like not necessarily below Jewish people, because if you are a Jewish person who says something they don't like, I believe it was like the anti-Semitism minister of like Baden-Württemberg who said like Jewish Voice for Peace are not real Jews. He is not Jewish himself, obviously.
Always good when German people are deciding who's a Jew and who's not.
Yeah, we're back to this. They have one trick they come back to. It's very upsetting, and there's a lot of like weird psychosis stuff going on. You also have a lot of like leading Jewish voices or Jewish authorities in this country being like people who are German Gentiles who recently converted, which is like,
did they get circumcised?
I have no idea.
You have to.
Yes, absolutely. But like they will talk. They will then take on the mantle of like generational trauma, and it's like, that's not something you could maybe do as a recent convert, I don't think.
Yeah. And I think
once you convert, you get the epigenetic memories with the conversion.
Yeah, that's also one of the requirements too that they've been trying to push for like German citizenship as well, is that then how do they encapsulate the guilt? Because this is something that then has continuously come up in the recent government has the current government has recently done a reform, this and that and that, instead of 8 years living in this godforsaken hellhole, it's only 5 now. And you have to, like, the language requirements are slightly lower, but still quite I'm not
to become
not
a citizen,
difficult.
to get a passport.
To get a passport, and then it's 3 years if you can like show certain other things that you've taken like an extra initiative. However, the thing that continuously comes up along this discussion now, particularly after October 7th, is like, well, how like the guilt factor can't like German. When you have a German passport, you need this German guilt, and it's been a very weird thing when like so they've tried to put it on to the thing that you need to like recognize Israel as a state, which that's questionably legal, but it's passed in like was it Thuringia or was it Sachsen? Either get one of the
East German states.
the East German states passed this. I think it was Sachsen actually, and because that's the way that then it's like, well, we can't transfer this guilt over. So how do we solidify then this quote unquote fight against anti-Semitism encapsulated with then German guilt that's going to obviously magically come with the passport, because Germany can't realize also the sense too that then it's like there's going to be people becoming a part of your society that then generationally was not a part of this in any way whatsoever. And also in many cases could possibly have been a victim to Nazi violence that you also just don't recognize. For example, like the Roma Sinti population is like one of the most unrecognized groups in Germany when it comes to like Holocaust remembrance stuff, to where one of the monuments in Berlin that is in front of the Bundestag, or to the side of it, I guess technically, was not paid for by the government but by like Jewish activists who raised money to then have a Roma Sinti monument, a memorial for the Holocaust, which was not paid for and barely even acknowledged by the government. There's also been another one that they're threatening of moving because they want to
Roma
build
people involved in the Holocaust. They're trying to keep doing that to them.
And then there's another there's another monument as well too. I believe somewhere in North Rhine-Westphalia, a state in the west, that they want to put an S-Bahn, so like a tramway in the where this monument is, and they just want to just tear it down.
Not even move it.
Not even move it, just get rid of it.
Yeah, there's this, just to emphasize Nick's point, there's always been this kind of thing within Germany when they really started getting into the memory culture stuff. It was actually a great way to keep kind of Germany white, which was to be German is to feel guilty for the Holocaust. And if you don't feel guilty for the Holocaust, say because you're Turkish German, your family moved here in the 50s.
You're not German.
You're not German. Coincidentally, that's amazing how that works out.
Yeah, and there is also then too, Germany has really done, I mean, the memory culture thing, which everyone associates to this country of being like, wow, they've dealt with, they've dealt with their crimes so well. I mean, I'm glad that then people are now seeing the reality of this, that it's just one, that they've done it for themselves and their own guilt, and two, that then Germany also, I think, unrealistically looks at the Holocaust or just looks at World War II in general. I think that then if we're coming from an actual understanding of what Nazism in World War II was, a perspective of living in Germany is that then particularly a lot of people on the left always talk about the sense of the idea then of Nazism falls under what would be called a Vernichtungskrieg. So a war of elimination, it wasn't, I mean, Jews were obviously, of course, one group within this thing, but the total enslavement of the Slavs and whatnot, and Hitler's plans for Lebensraum is typically a lot of the times forgotten within the history of how Nazism materialized. And it really, and a lot of activists internally within Jewish organizations in Germany have been pointing this out. It's Germany forgets these people because it creates obviously a much different creating a much more complete picture of Nazism allows then a lot of modern parallels to then kind of become a bit more haunting, to say the least. I mean, Ciarán, you have there's an example of refugees coming to look at Auschwitz, for example, and doing a tour. You can continue,
that quick story is that as a part of integrating refugees back in 2014, when there's these huge protests in East Germany against the Islamization of Germany and stuff. A part of integration courses, there's charity funded thing where they bring the refugees to Auschwitz to be look, we're acknowledging this, Germany, etc. There's some great stories, usually relating to Jewish currents, about these refugees saying, mostly Muslim from Middle East and North Africa, being oh God, are they going to do this to us? To which the people giving the tour freak the fuck out, because they're no, the Holocaust is this unique event. We could have only done it to Jewish people. Nothing can be compared to it. you should not learn any lessons from it. Like that's kind of the conclusion. But
Ciarán, to your point here, I have a quote here from Masha Gessen that you might be familiar with that I think really sums up quite neatly this sort of the way the Holocaust functions and like how it's kept in a certain preserve by German political culture. And it says here, the insistence on the singularity of the Holocaust and the centrality of Germany's commitment to reckoning with it are two sides of the same coin. They position the Holocaust as an event that Germans must always remember and mention, but don't have to fear repeating because it is unlike anything else that's ever happened or will happen. And, you know, like, it's not just that there are no current analogs to for instance, a war of elimination. It's that there are also no historical antecedents as well. And I have another thing about how like there was going to be like an organized event to commemorate the Holocaust in a German town that was canceled because the organizer was going to include a section of history about what Germany did to Namibia in the first years of the 20th century, which is like honestly where they honed a lot of the techniques used in the Shoah.
Yeah, that's a big one that's been we talked about it recently on our podcast, but it's been like it took them like 100 years to recognize the genocide against the Nama and Herero in Deutschland.
Yeah, because Turkey like yelled at them, remember? Like that was one of the weirdest ones. It was like, you can't tell us that we did a genocide, you did a genocide. And then Germany was like,
they recognized the Armenian genocide first. Yeah.
And then Germany got caught with like egg on their face being like, okay, I guess we do have to recognize the genocide that we did. But then Erdogan, of course, never acknowledged that Turkey did the Armenian genocide. So what was the fucking point, right?
Yeah, you played chicken with the wrong man. Yeah, it's upsetting, and like we did a recent episode about like how quickly like Germany will act usually when it talks about the Holocaust as if the modern German state since 1949 has not like faced any other kind of like geopolitical moral questions, but like the one that I constantly bring up and is like very illuminating when I learned about it was Germany, West Germany, never boycotted apartheid South Africa. They even like sent weapons after the Americans pulled out. They were very weird about the Khmer Rouge, naturally because it was like a Cold War thing. Yet as soon as they're like involved, as soon as they're like implicit in some way, which is definitely related to Israel, they do not want to call a genocide. Like if it's Darfur, if it's Rwanda, they're a bit quicker about it. But like the ones they're actually involved in, not so much.
Do you get a sense of like in terms of like not their political leadership, but like average Germans or people who speak about this or weigh in on Israel Palestine? Like, do you get a sense that they're aware of how ridiculous they look to the rest of the world when they invoke what their grandparents did to give them moral authority to shit all over peace and solidarity in the present day?
So I'm seeing Nick raring to go. I think I'm going to premise any conversation about this with like, Germany is kind of like weirdly split in this because like I think it's probably most comparable to where like the US and the UK was on like particularly Israel Palestine maybe like 10-20 years ago, where like this discussion of Israel is like completely this media creation, and like media has been really tightly wound up and controlled, and then obviously people who get their like politics from media and media consumption, say the Greens for example, will kind of just like repeat that wholesale. But like we've had polling that suggests that like 61% of Germans feel that Israel's response has gone too far. That like they've really kind of like shut down like any polling, but that exists and it's pretty firm. Something like 59% like want a ceasefire as well. We have a German co-host. Don't worry, she's cool. But she has related that she's seeing like people on her Facebook from back home talk about like this is getting out of hand from people she thought would never say that kind of stuff.
It's not too different from America in that we have a political establishment that is 100% behind Israel and about 60 to 70% of the population that's just like, hey, this is too much for me.
Yeah, but I think the problem that you run into with America is that like America is like the largest population of Jewish people who have like obviously opinions and are like voicing up that they don't support what's happening, whereas Germany is very happy to ignore the small minority of Jewish people and the even smaller minority of Jewish people who would be against what's happening in this country.
Yeah, I think as well too that then it's like while I I mean, I'm in the beautiful bubble that I've created myself where I do not allow Zionists into it, but which is very hard to do in Germany. But the thing that then's very weird that I've experienced more is that you see it within kind of like a much more academic class of people, which this isn't weird when it comes off the, like of course, yes, academics, can blow a bunch of like hot air up your ass or whatever and say nothing. But the fact that then a lot of the pro-Israel stuff in Germany has always kind of been solidified around, and here we're going to go talking about them, in some regards, like the anti-Deutsch movement. And we've said the word. We said the forbidden word. And the thing that I kind of had a very odd time like being confronted with was that you would be like in what you would think like were like left-wing circles, and then you'd be like confronted by like very pro-Israeli, like not even just like that they're like, oh, like I think Israel should exist. They're like the IDF is anti-fascism. Like for example, I tore down a sticker today that I saw on the way to the grocery store that has the Antifa logo with instead of the whatever, the red or the black flag in the front and the other flag in the back, it is an Israeli flag in the front and a red flag in the back, and says Antifaschistische Aktion on it. It is absolutely bonkers to see in any other country in the world, and in Germany this is just like a bizarre little like cult in the left that then controls weirdly enough, and again that sounds very problematic, but it is Germans who are having this guilt crisis of theirs that then have a lot of them starting on the left and then kind of internalizing this politics, writing, ad nauseum about why doesn't everyone understand that I, the person who have gone and like studied university, and like they're always freaks who study like, German studying like Jewish or Holocaust studies, where you kind of have to like look and be like, are you really interested in this? Or are you just being like, are you just fetishizing these people? Because it really is the second one. And then a lot of them, which then weirdly enough, they'll start in this like anti-Deutsch thing, and then they'll just end up becoming like conservative or like right wing, or in some cases, actual neo-Nazi media personalities. One of a guy who owns, I believe it's Compact is the magazine. There's Compact, and Concrete. There's 3 magazines. They're all on the complete different. One is a left wing one is a literal neo-Nazi magazine that campaigns for the AfD, and the other one is like a stupid like graphics like thing that does like maps,
like a skate magazine or something.
This is the 3 currents of politics in Germany.
They just do like maps of like, they're just like, they're all nerdy in their own different way. But like one of the guys, Esna is the guy's last name, if I'm not mistaken, like used to work for a communist paper, was really anti-Deutsch. In the 90s, breaks off from that paper, starts another paper called Jungle World, which then is strictly anti-Deutsch. And if you want to go and just like
stare into the maw,
just stare into just like the pure abyss that is the anti-Deutsch, like go into the like Jungle World's website. It's like just jungle.world, and then translate that, and you will just see the most insane things of how anti-fascism is actually supporting this genocide, blah, 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 blah. Just shit like that. But this guy who then ends up at Jungle World a few years later is like a like literal Nazi, and like one of our favorite boys, Ulf Polschat, who's who's literally the head of one of the, big Springer companies here, Welt, clearly, I don't know if he himself was anti-Deutsch, but like was in this like kind of like squatting techno group.
He was
thing
a DJ
in the 90s. He was a DJ in Berlin in the 90s who had left-wing politics, is very pro-Israel, has very much these like very clear kind of anti-Deutsch stances. And you can then see how then that they kind of start in this academic circle and then end up into this like media class, just like continuously patting themselves in the back that they're the only ones doing the true fight against anti-Semitism. While I do think that then like, there was a recent poll done as well. Yes. Like not yesterday, but like with a couple months ago or so of like, what's your trust in like the main German media? And of course, most Germans don't trust it. And this is again, kind of coming onto the back of that it's like they try to always twist it into the sense of like, oh, this is because the AfD is on the rise, instead of the fact that your media class is completely
Germany. How would you describe their politicians and like their average voter and just sort of their platform?
Well, so SPD is one of like 2 default parties in Germany. They're the backup party, I guess. We can talk about the default party later. They range from like Blairite, kind of socially progressive but neoliberal, and then there will be some like hardcore communists in the West who just view voting for Die Linke as a step too far, but they're still like good union men. That's the kind of like voting base of the SPD. What Schultz is like a Keebler elf that gets into like money crimes mostly.
Olaf Scholz is the current chancellor.
Of
the largest party, and the SPD is currently the largest party in the Bundestag, and Olaf Scholz is the chancellor.
So he was formerly mayor of Hamburg, and like while there, basically did a bunch of like corruption schemes with people who love writing down all the crimes they do into their journal, and then that somehow gets. I'm not even kidding. That's like how they all get caught, is they just love journaling.
Olaf is doing money crimes. Write it in your diary.
Maybe that's why it's been so hard for the Germans to find Jan Masalek all this time, because he just didn't write everything down like all these.
Yeah,
German
we're all out of
freaks do.
ideas. He didn't leave an incredibly obvious paper trail, so we're all out of ideas. And then he was also like mayor of Hamburg when the like G20 protests happened. So he's a big like a law and order guy in a certain way. But like everyone in the current government, he's just kind of been like steamrolled by history, because the last federal elections in Germany was September 2021. And then like less than 6 months later, Putin invades Ukraine, and a bunch of people who we did not vote for under these conditions now suddenly have to reckon with there is a war 2 countries over.
Yeah, and another thing too, just very quickly with Olaf Scholz that we've brought up on the like show multiple times, is that he's like also responsible for the Hamburg police becoming a lot more violent, not just with G20, but then like using like experimental vomiting drugs on like people that then they have detained. Like the German word's Brechmittel, which would be like something that then just like makes you throw up. So they would like give these to people to like incapacitate them. They've like killed people. And Scholz like oversaw the usage of the police kind of developing new like non-lethal tactics.
How do they give them a drug that makes you throw up, or is it like a gas of some kind, or are they just like, here, take this pill, you'll feel better?
No, I think it's for then in the sense of if like someone's already been detained, that they like. I don't know what the process is, but it was like it ended. It was a very big scandal in the sense that then that like the police had this new method in order to like incapacitate people who were being like unruly, and what I guess it caused people to do is just to like vomit, and I guess it killed some people, and yeah. So Olaf Scholz is just like rolling in some of the most like insane police tactics that you can possibly imagine. Yeah, that's that rocks.
It seems like a good summary of the ruling party.
You really don't like hearing about the Germans using like experimental drugs and medicines to incapacitate political prisoners.
It happened on a scene in Family Guy, so it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or like there's also, I mean, like the thing about it too is that like there like the thing with police brutality in Germany is that then it's like there's always just magically like people. There's been cases, particularly people who are not white, who just like magically kill themselves while they've been like incapacitated in their cells. One of the most famous cases is Aui Jalo, who was killed in Dessau, which is like not too far from Berlin, actually. And he was locked in his cell and apparently lit himself on fire. I don't know how you do that, but yeah. So the police in Germany has, and also because remember, I said Nazi continuation state at the beginning. That was not really a joke, but like Germany does also this lovely thing too, that then of course the police and the military and the secret services are overfilled with Nazis in this country, and they just don't investigate crimes. Or they'll just like files go missing and whatnot, or whatever you can think of just will happen, and poof, like, or that person who was being on trial, you can't interview them because they were an informant. There's so many problems here. But yeah, I mean the SPD. We're keeping it tight. Yeah, we're keeping it tight. Yeah, so the SPD is like the biggest governing party, but I think that, or the biggest governing partner of the coalition. And then there's like kind of the two that don't mix into the coalition, which is the Greens and the FDP.
Well, yeah, we can dispense with the FDP. They seem pretty boring, just sort of like a junior partner coalition, sort of like I mean, I could be wrong about this, but it's kind of anti-welfare state, but pro-government.
Yeah, they kind of get it. Yeah, they kind of like, they may not even like make it into the Bundestag like next election, because they literally won the election based on like streamers like who were selling Pokemon cards.
Yeah, they really like every like crypto bro in Germany found like a political party in the FDP, because they're like they're libertarian very much in like the American sense. The two things they used to like win people on was like, we want to legalize weed and gay marriage. And now both of those things have basically happened in Germany. And now they're kind of like, well, what if we just like destroyed the entire European economy, which is like the dumbest economics possible.
They're also like, they're libertarians who just like hate economics or whatever too, because they just like believe in like all these like weird things like the debt break, which is why Germany can't spend, and they're all like, the FDP wants to like preserve this with the CDU. But
it is very funny to see the global version of that, like Ron Paulism, that's like, oh yeah, weed should be legal and people should be able to do what they want, and then when those things get resolved, it's like, well, then our third issue is you should be able to buy and sell children.
Yeah, but the big thing that helps them is that the guy who runs that party thinks he is the hottest person alive. Yeah. And every campaign poster is just him with 5 o'clock shadow in a suit.
Yeah, and he's gotten everything that he has wanted in the current government, which is insane. Like every single, like the FDP is weirdly the most, like they're the smallest member. They're like somehow the quietest member in a lot of regards. But like Christian Lindner, the head of the party, has like gunned for the fact that he wants to make a coalition. He's not even quiet about it in this regard, that he wants to make a coalition with the CDU if it's possible. He's also like willing to work with the Greens if they become more right wing, which they're there. And but like in terms of, he wanted his finance minister position, he got it. He is the most important man, probably second most important man probably in like Europe, to be completely fair. And he got everything he wanted. And then again, COVID came and his dreams just got wrecked. And the FDP like may not even make it into government, but who will make it into government are the Greens.
Okay, we need to talk about the Greens, because I describe them as probably the strangest major political party in the world. So the Greens, basically, how does a political party that started out as basically kind of a clearinghouse for anti-nuclear environmentalists, sort of post-68 left-wingers, and how shall I put this? People who think it should be legal to have sex with children. I mean, it's a good news that it's a good news that the Green Party has abandoned all of those original party platforms. But where do these people come from? What do they stand for now, if not pedophilia?
We put that one in the dustbin of history. I just have to say one story about, because like Volker Beck is a former Green politician who like he went through that kind of 80s phase of the Green Party, let's say, and he's now like the head of the like Israeli German Friendship Society, so he's having a very normal time online. But most famously in 2013, when like Der Spiegel, like one of the major papers here, was just like, hey, in the 80s you wrote this paper about how we should like let like people who want to have sex with children, like that should just be kind of like a,
it was like thing. Literally like NAMBLA, but like
and like comparing it with like the struggle for gay rights as well, which was like but anyway they come out and say like, hey, you did this. He initially goes, no, I don't, and then they have to publish the whole article he wrote in full, unedited, to say like, no, you said this. And then he was like, oh yeah, sorry, that was me, I'm bad, I'm sorry, I fucked up.
It's like the Chappelle Show skit where it's like the Tupac, like Dave Chappelle, that ain't your wife, like thing. And it's just like Volker Beck just being like, I wrote this in '89.
There's always been like, I guess, two wings of the Green Party, the Realos and the Fundies, which is like realists and fundamentalists. The fundamentalists are your like 68. We shouldn't do nuclear for environmentalist reasons, and we've noticed that there's a bunch of former Nazis in the government, so maybe they shouldn't have nuclear weapons capabilities. That's an aspect of this that usually gets buried. Yeah. That was a part of it, but then the fundamentalists come along, and they're like, we need to make all these compromises so that we can get into government. And now the fundies are dead. They're in Dre's basement or Eminem's basement or whatever the fuck, like, because the fundies are in charge. Everyone who like leads.
Wait, the fundies are the realists are in charge.
Oh, sorry, the realos are in charge. The people,
sort of like I don't know, like have an environmental agenda, but one that essentially leaves free market economics completely untouched.
Yeah, basically just carbon credits. Like just that wonderful idea that came like 50 years too late.
Also, like I heard that like Eurofighters are good for the environment too. Like,
yeah, we have to give them. We're against giving them to the Saudi Arabians because they're going to kill the Houthis, which actually we've just discovered are anti-Semitic. So now they can have Eurofighter jets. Thank you. I'm Annalena Baerbock. Yeah, it's the only really frustrating part of it is they'll really like when they campaign or when they want to talk about themselves, they'll pretend like the fundies still exist. They'll like try to launder their like their kind of radical past credentials to make it seem like it's okay that we want to privatize like public transport because that will help the environment somehow.
I used to love young boys, but now
now I'm a real man. Right?
Now I'm a real man doing, you know, big arms deals worldwide, and you can too.
But like I think on your show, like you described the Greens as being like basically like the furthest left wing, most like liberal or left sympathetic Germans can like sort of allow themselves to vote for, even though the Greens are now kind of a major like anti-communist. They're sort of like an anti-communist enforcement in German politics.
Yeah, depending on like where you are in the country, the SPD candidate might be actually further left wing. Like they're a strain. The Greens are fucking weird. But yeah, I mean, Nick can talk about like the anti-communism kind of aspect that exists amongst the Germans.
The Green voter has just kind of really like turned. The simplest way of putting it is that then it's become the kind of metropolitan voter who's always going to show up to vote. Mind you, politics is important to them in the sense that it makes them feel good, and the Greens are that vibe. And the thing about the Greens too is that then they have kind of also adopted, because remember, like Germany is very much a country that then does love the United States. They will tell you all the time that they don't, but then like they kind of all dream about going to like, oh, when I was in LA, or when I was in Miami, or when I was in New York, it was the best time of my life. I would love to move there.
Like, who's that guy who wrote about the Southwest that they all kind of like fetishize?
Karl May. Yeah, he never went to the United States. But anyway, like there is like
he just liked all the paintings of mesas.
Yeah, he's just a fan of our Indian policy.
Exactly. Yeah, there's another German who was a fan of that too. So
he was Austrian.
He was Austrian. But technically, Karl May is from like Prussia or some shit. So there, right? Anyway, like so the Greens are probably one of the weirdest parties because nothing that they can do now at this point will distance that voter from them, because that voter, as you said, like that'll be for them like the activist vote as far as they can go. But they would never vote for a party like Die Linke because, well, Die Linke has their roots in the SED, technically, the Socialist Unity Party of East Germany. And that's just, you know, that's scary Marxism, Leninism, and that's the spooky Eastern stuff. And it's also why like Die Linke has very low support in the West, is because that campaign of propaganda against them, given most of the people even like associate, like, yeah, okay, like is someone like Egon Krenz a member of Die Linke? Possibly. I don't know. I think he is. But it's like there are very few members. I mean, like Gregor Gysi was a member of the SED, but like he clearly is not. It's like it's very hard to find these like people within the party politics of Die Linke who are like dead-eyed, like, you know, SED, you know, Abgeordnete that don't exist anymore. There are weirdos, of course. I mean, like if you go into East Germany and you find a member of Die Linke in like, you know, one of their strongholds, like and ask them about the situation in Ukraine, you're going to get maybe a crackpot who loves Putin. That is true. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know, like the Greens want to be the sensible one. They want to be the people who don't have these type of like weirdos in their mix, and they want to feel good about themselves. So that's, they'll consistently stay at like 15-16%. And it was primarily because that worked so well at the European like election for them. What was that? 2019, 2020? Yeah.
2019.
Where they kind of started, they like the Greens also went into the last German election without really like any manifesto, and then waited to see what the vibe was going to be, and then went with Baerbock as the head candidate because they were assuming with the SPD that it would be someone that they needed this like fundy kind of vibe with, where Robert Habeck, who's the co-head of the party, who's also the economic and climate minister, they changed the position for him because, Green, wanted to go down a more right-wing, very strong neoliberal position with the party. So the Greens can become anything that they want to be, which is kind of brilliant.
Well, you said like they don't have much of like they waited to see what their political platform would be just by sort of reading the air. But here is one issue that which the German Green Party is at the forefront of that led to an interesting political controversy recently, and that is the banning of fast food, or a banning of fast food advertising, because they're worried that too many plump little German children because of McDonald's or whatever. This led to a controversy in which one of the deputy federal chairwoman of the Greens, Ricarda Lang, was surreptitiously photographed on a train with a bag of McDonald's.
Yeah, that's always really mean though too, because like they always like do like real fat phobic shit to Ricarda Lang. I'm like, I don't like her at all. I think that she's an absolute idiot, and like one of the like she like literally, I mean, one of the most ridiculous things I remember from her is that then when it came to like weapon shipments to Ukraine, like they were obsessed with the like send the leopards, and she like took a picture of herself in like leopard print. It was like,
yeah, that was a dark day.
Bringing up baby, Jesus.
Yeah.
No, they can't ban fast food advertising in this country.
No. This country would explode. They would. They wouldn't need Putin to nuke it. They would just do it themselves. They would build an atomic bomb themselves just to do it.
This is the land of sausage and beer. The cholesterol.
It's treats. Yeah, it's treat country.
Yeah, you can't do that. And also, they can't take away my big day, big tasty. Absolutely not. I can't.
Come and take it.
Yeah. So the advertisement for McDonald's with the like. Because I love advertising in this city whenever it's in English, because if it's in French, if it's in Russian, they're like, we need to hire a translator. If it's in English, they're just like some German guy called like Sebastian will be just like, I fucking got this. And they write an ad called Big Day, Big Tasty. And we're just like, I'm just like, what is this? I love this.
Well, to be fair, the times that I've been in Germany, when I'm looking at German words, and I've maybe had a few beers from the Corner Späti, I also think, you know what? If I squint hard enough, I can basically figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
It's just like
exactly.
It's just like drunk English.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on from the ruling coalition, I'd like to get just a brief survey of the opposition, starting with the Christian Democratic Union of Germany, the CDU, which is sort of
they are all three of those things: Christian, Democratic, and
United.
It's like what Voltaire said about the Holy Roman Empire.
Don't mind that there's a second one in Bavaria. The CDU. What can we say? Merkel was really papering over a lot of the cracks.
Oh my God, yeah. God, like you know what? I hate to say this, but bring her back. Come back, Queen. She really.
We didn't know how bad we had.
Yeah, I did not know how bad the CDU was until that party left. So where do we start? So there you have everything from like, it used to be that you had everyone from like monarchists to like crypto Nazis to like everyone to your like kind of like
big tent.
Yeah. I mean, like, the CDU is the biggest, is probably one of the best examples of big tent parties. And then when you just like leave one person in that party for too long in power, and then you remove them, and then you're like kind of also
see what the rest of them are like.
Yeah, you see what the rest of that tent looks like, and you're like, holy shit. One of the guys who just left the party, Hans-Georg Maaßen, who used to be the head of the Verfassungsschutz, which is like the German it's like a thing that other countries don't. What if COINTELPRO was forever?
And
like,
the name translates as Constitution Protector.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the only way I can describe the Verfassungsschutz is, what if you just had COINTELPRO as a government, as a federal body that can do anything that it wants. He was the head of this organization, was helping neo-Nazis out, and got caught with that on his face, eventually got removed, and now he's starting his own party that's just literally called like Values Union.
Yeah.
Sounds like a supermarket. Sounds like a supermarket.
Yeah. And then you have also then kind of I mean, of course, Angela Merkel, Queen herself, just is very, the thing about the CDU that's also very interesting is that then they are like they did kind of come particularly, like, especially in the Merkel years, the truest form of realpolitik. Angela Merkel is the truest, like, neoliberal ideologue. She believes capitalism is going to, like, truly save the world. And that's how Germany ended up in the mess that they did with, like, investing heavily in like Russian resources without investing in your own. What happens if Russia turns the pipe off, or what happens if Germany gets in a war and the current government then doesn't want to then still keep Russian oil or Russian gas? Merkel
let's say someone blows up the pipeline. What happened?
Someone
blows up a pipeline,
and Swedes look at it for a bit, then they stop, and it's all fine. We can't.
I mean, it really is like the CDU as well too. Just historically has had they've been also talking about German memory culture. They're a party who was very much against this up until the 1980s. They're a party that then into the 90s believed that Germany's borders included most of Poland.
Reunification meant reunification.
Yes. The CDU was kept like they had a pacifier to the far right for such a long time because of Merkel, and then the refugee quote unquote crisis happens, and then creates then from it within the CDU allows in a group like the AfD to then like spring up because of a lot of members of this party then going into like there. But the CDU, just one interesting thing about them is that they're not like this typical like neoliberal, I want to cut everything. They love the social welfare state when it benefits the German economy and makes them rich still.
Yes, they are. We have to build trains because how are we going to get the Volkswagens to the ports? That they will actually invest in infrastructure.
Yeah, Ciarán, before we started recording, you said the internet in Germany is pretty shitty because the internet doesn't export and build cars, so they don't subsidize
yeah, exactly.
it. Yeah,
they don't need it.
Yeah, but you know what? Though? Those cars, pretty great. All right, Nick, you mentioned the AfD, which is like this is the scary like stalking horse, and everyone like is the existence or the growing strength of the AfD, is that used as kind of like like another excuse, like, well, you have to vote for this party because we can't let the literal Nazis take control of everything?
I think it's just a general sense of vote for anyone who isn't the AfD. And I think that this is why there also is the third party that then is kind of coming up on the right, this Werteunion, or the Values Union that Hans-Georg Maaßen is, which then Hans-Georg Maaßen started this party and then immediately got investigated by COINTELPRO forever. Like, it's a bit ridiculous.
So, like, as far as far right parties go, like, how frightening is the AfD?
The AfD is quite frightening, to say the least. For I assume that then that you guys got wind of the literal Wannsee conference 2.0 that kind of threw Germany into it expanded the protests that were already happening against the AfD.
Nick, I gotta cut you off there. I was not aware that Germany held the second Wannsee conference, and I would like to know more about it.
Okay, so literally, I think was it 2 months ago now, there was this Korrektiv, which is an investigative website or group of journalists in Germany. They found that there were a group of members from the CDU, the AfD, and Martin Sellner's identitarian movement, who all like met somewhere in like a villa in Brandenburg to decide what to do about migrants. And they wanted to, experiment with this idea of what Martin Sellner has been calling of remigration. Which is how do we kick out people who have become naturalized German citizens and get them the fuck out of here and create a white country, So kind of doing the whole thing of, how do you create what's his name's like Montana that he wants?
Richard Spencer.
Richard Spencer, yeah. It's like, how do you create a thing like that where you don't?
Costner.
Gavin, a popular name here.
So we're like, Richard Spencer would like point to something like, well, you can just make a state in the United States and put all the minorities. Germany can't do that, So it's like so there was this whole conference.
Sure, they can.
And that. Yeah,
sounds like a challenge. Exactly. Yeah,
sounds like a challenge, exactly. And for Martin Sellner, he wants to then make remigration this policy plan that then groups like the AfD and further right members of the CDU are pretty stoked about. And so what then happened after that was this all came out. There was like kind of a list of names of who was there. An absolute fucking weird group of people, like a dentist from Düsseldorf.
Yeah,
Like,
the Nazi
who's the one
dentist.
who's-
Oh, Nazi dentist. Okay, is it safe?
Yeah.
Is it safe?
Well, like dentist is like the equivalent of like former nobility in the 1920s in Germany.
sure.
I feel like
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
socio-political class.
So so this meeting happens, and then there were already protests against the AfD that were happening since more or less their inception, and since the like Pegida, the like patriotic Europeans against the Islamization of Europe, or the Abendland, as they called it.
The West.
Like these groups then that of course had hooked onto the AfD and like, you know, the like in the post-refugee crisis area, this and that. There had always been kind of a counter protest movement to them, and it got massive support then after this corrective report came out, and caused a bunch of people to then come onto the street, protest this and that. And then also simultaneously is then when we see these videos of people going to the anti-racist protest and then getting, you know, spat on for being, you know, a Jewish anti-Zionist, or for being, you know, or being just Palestinian and being, you know, racist, you know, being, you know, threatened or unkind gestures, or, you know, threats to them and this and that. So it blew up into this thing, and then it ended up becoming a very confusing moment that doesn't really, I haven't seen an anti-AfD protest now in a few weeks, to be completely honest. Because I think it was all too confusing for everyone. And then also as well, the CDU, because they like first joined these protests, and then now they're like, well, wait, like we don't actually want to support them because the AfD, like, I think that there's genuinely a possibility that the AfD and the CDU could just like locally start working together. And also the CDU doesn't want to admit that they were also like there at the meeting, some of the people, but the AfD is getting bigger. And the problem within the AfD is that then they're the only party that then is being able to kind of take these like real material issues that are affecting a lot of Germans, particularly the sense of cost of living crisis, and being able to then encapsulate that with an actual, you know, vision and answer and this and that, which is, a lot of them are very much against the war in Ukraine, and it's not for a good reason of like, hey, wars are fucking evil and they cause a lot of death and destruction. It's because
gas bills.
Yeah, gas bills. And there's also the party split. One part of the party, part of the AfD, wants to like reinvade Russia and, you know, dig up their dead grandfather in Stalingrad. And the other part of it wants to like literally make out with Vladimir Putin and have like met with Russian officials at the Russisches House in Germany, in Berlin, to then kind of like coordinate, you know, quote unquote disinformation campaigns and whatnot. So the AfD is is a multifaceted threat because of one, they're very racist. They have full-blown Nazis in their party. You are legally allowed to call members of like some members of their party, like Björn Höcke is legally allowed to be called a fascist in this country and a Nazi. You can call him that because he used to write for a Nazi paper under the name Landolf Ladig and has quoted Goebbels.
LL kill Jews.
It's just like you have a certain wing of his group called literally the wing, Die Flügel, was deemed to be too extreme, and they had to break them up. But they're still members of the party. They're still allowed to exist. They're still allowed to campaign. He's still in government.
Just to clarify, really quickly.
Yeah, sure.
There are like laws that you can't in Germany where you like literally can't voice certain views and call certain things.
Yeah. Like if
names,
you called,
right?
if you called me a Nazi on this podcast and we were in Germany, I could sue you. Yes.
Okay.
And there was no proof.
Special government dispensation where it's like we've researched this and a team of experts have decreed that this is in fact Nazism.
This photo of you in front of this ancient Hindu symbol might be a bit suspect. Yeah.
And so like the thing with the AfD is as well too is that then they have kind of like managed also to like a problem that they have too is that they've attracted too many like overzealous youths who like get the Nazism. and they
don't get to shut up about it.
Yeah, and they don't, and they like they're very bad about like keeping them under wraps. So it's like all like kind of like it's a bunch of things. I mean, like to be fair, they started as an Austro-economics like nerd party in 2013 of like Germany needs to leave the euro, like this and that and that, and
not
of course
leave the EU, just the euro,
just
bring
the euro,
back the Deutschmark.
Yeah, and so they've surprise surprise, Austro-economics has never been connected to Nazism, have easily found their way into becoming this far right wing entity that then is like ideologically sometimes all over the place, but the things that they're at least like consistent on is that they're fucking racist as shit. They want better relations with Russia, but it's in much more of like they believe the like Putin Christendom bullshit stuff like Tucker Carlson does a bit. Of like, oh, like, do you speak with God or whatever, this and that, whatever fucking bullshit question he asked Putin. But yeah, like, and they do come from a lot of sense of like, I would say like it's partially like real economic grief from a lot of people to point to the East German numbers. However, people also then forget to point to the fact that they're, I think, one of the largest parties with most PhDs in their party. So it's a very well-educated, So it's a very well-educated party. It's also a lot of members of the party who are then the functionaries of the party were all in the CDU for the most part. Alexander Gauland, a depressing old man who always wears the same dog tie, like a tie with dogs on it. Was formerly in the CSU, the Bavarian version of the CDU, which we didn't really talk about, but it's like, imagine the CDU, but if it was more Catholic.
In Lederhosen, yeah.
In Lederhosen, yeah. So I think that the threat is very much like serious and legitimate. The problem that Germany has is that then their inability to understand, of course, first and foremost, what anti-fascism is that they are, I think the overwhelming problem of Germany is that they trust their institutions a bit too much. They know that the government, Germany's very weird where it's like, not like the US where it's like, oh, this is all broken, this and that and that. Like Germans like fap over the idea of like, let's go back to Weimar. I'm like, you want to have a government every other week? Like, no, I don't. I don't. I'm fine with that. Why do you like, this is like Weimar was so weak it led to the Nazis. And yet you think that this is like, oh, well, anti-fascism is when you vote your way, you vote the fascists out by continuously making coalitions with the other fucking fascists. And the thing is too, is that then Germans have this idea that then that fascism can only come if it's from the fascist region of Germany. And the reality of it is that then, at least from like our perspective on the show, is that then it's like Europe already is in this like continuous like fascist project. The European Union kind of keeps that at a, keeps it humming, keeps it going. We have like an archipelago of fucking concentration camps all in the Aegean. Like, don't ask about it. We have Frontex, we have pushbacks, we have all the violent aspects that then exist in it. The thing that then becomes problematic is that then a lot of these groups like the AfD want more of that, but more localized. And a lot of Europeans think that then that all this other shit is good and fine. Like obviously there's a lot of activists who don't think that that's good and fine. They do a lot of good work for it. But the people then who typically vote for like the CDU or the SPD and stuff like that, like aren't particularly bothered with then like all like the other like problematic stuff. It's like the AfD just says it aloud.
So like nobody wants to see like immigrants getting rounded up in their town, but they're fine with boats getting sunk in the Mediterranean so long as they just don't reach their town.
They just don't want to see it. That's the thing, is that then it could be happening. They just don't want to hear about it. That's like the thing about it is like out of sight, out of mind. The European mind is like, at ease in that way.
And the EU allows you to kind of like pretend that it's not your problem, because the EU matters when it's convenient. But then suddenly when this is happening, oh, that's an Italian problem. That's a Greek problem.
Exactly.
That's not a German problem.
Yeah. And like the thing about it too is that then it's like a perfect example is like the Greens will then exhibit this sense of that then they'll like, I remember during like in like 2015, I saw like a documentary over here of like people going to help refugees. And it was like the different positions of people, blah, 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 blah. And it was like Germans always, at least particularly of this like class of people of like well off, like they mean well, still really fucking racist because they're like, well, why are you helping these people? It's like, well, because they're lesser than us and they need our help and this and that and that. And I think that is like genuinely like Germany is the whitest place I've ever lived in my life. I mean, I am a white fella myself, but it's, it's not fucking hard to, I mean, like being from the Southwest is like, half my friends were not white and it was just a different way of growing up in Europe, and not Europe, but Germany is like, it is odd. I mean, yeah, of course you have like the Turkish and Arab neighborhoods in Berlin and this and that, but it's like you step out of this area, you know, like I was in Bielefeld recently. I went to like the countryside to go visit like a friend of mine, and just everything is white. Like you cannot like fathom. Like I went to like when I was in London recently, and I was like surprised seeing other people who weren't white on the like tube, and I'm like, oh, this is what a normal country is like, you know? Like this is like Germany is so homogenous around a fake idea of their like, you know, kind of pureness in a weird way, even though they pretend that they're not. Also, the pureness law was written into the Constitution to like the 90s, but we're not going to talk about that. And there's just so many things kind of coming like that Germany's been hit with so quickly. I feel in like maybe like the last decade or so that then have put a lot of these liberal challenges, you know, like liberal ideas to their like absolute, to the brink of them being able to exist in a country like Germany that then is so fundamentally racist, you know, so fundamentally tied to then it's like, you know, Germany had like the guest worker program, for example. Like Germany legitimately thought that they were just going to come and work and then just go right back. And they never bothered to like integrate, you know, I know that word's problematic, but, you know, they never bothered to like teach these people German half the time. And they just kind of like ghettoized them in an area of Kreuzberg and then left them there and then wondered then 2 generations later, like, what are all these Turkish people in our country doing? You know, why do then like their parents don't speak German very well? What the fuck? Like they don't seem to understand the fact that then in order to then have like this liberal society that they want to do, they have to like work for it. You know, even if I like it or not, at the end of the day, you know, like I think it'd be better if Germany at least had the bare minimum of these like liberal values that they pretend that they do, that they have. But instead, we have a Green Party that then's like demanding, you know, to continue a genocide in Gaza, more or less. We're having a social democratic party that then is headed by a former Leninist who is like doing budget cuts left and right, you know, and we have the, you know, like the FDP who's getting everything that they want, you know. So
well, I mean, this is a good segue into like the last of the like political factions I want to talk about.
Yeah,
the German left, Die Linke. Like what is it? Where is the left in Germany today?
Oh my goodness, what a dire situation.
Let's end on a happy note.
Yeah.
Die Linke is unfortunately in a kind of death spiral that might reverse mainly down to like this contradiction they always had of like they were very successful in the East, but the people that were voting for them in the East were basically voting for them because they were like, you're the only party that acknowledges that reunification kind of fucked us over. And it's less about like being socialists and being communists or whatever. It's more about like East German identity and rage at the fact that like every other party up until the AfD was just like reunification was good. It's normal that all your children are leaving and there's like no millionaires from this side of the country or businesses from this side of the country, or that you invented an unbreakable form of glass and then a glass company bought the patent and is not making any unbreakable forms of glass. You can just get these mugs and just throw them on the floor and they bounce. It's great. But like,
what we could have had.
What we could have had.
Yeah. Instead, we have the weakest glass over here.
Absolutely.
Bullshit.
And and then the AfD rolls around. They come around with a more simpler explanation of why East Germany is shit because of brown people. And that kind of caused them to spiral. They didn't meet that moment very well. Unfortunately, there was this kind of like movements, union divide type of thing. And now either the German left is going to succeed like as a like fractious and divided and maybe still working together, or it's not going to meet the 5% threshold to get into government again. And yeah.
And I also think that as well too, like Die Linke has they'll always like exist, of course, in like metropolitan areas. Like Die Linke in Berlin, I'm actually quite like hopeful for, because when one of their members, Sarah Wagenknecht, broke off and started her own party, the BSW, or literally like Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, so she just named the party after herself. They like, there was this kind of like moment of one that then the Sarah Wagenknecht party like had a massive like 20% poll at one point. Just, I think it was just an error though.
That was like a stupid poll. Yeah,
it was. And then like Die Linke, then because of her leaving the party, had like a massive like a spike in their membership, and a lot. And the thing about Die Linke too is that then it's like for all their like silliness and all of their like, I mean, the thing that the Die Linke has to deal with right now is like dealing with their Israel-Palestine problem, that they have an anti-Deutsch problem. The anti-Deutsch is the loudest group as always. They, they get themselves into comfortable positions and they start kicking people out. That's just how they always work in a lot of these, whether it be in media, parties, this and that and that. And a lot of kids from non-Aryan German backgrounds have a problem with that. And there's been a lot of younger local activists who've been joining the party, who've been trying to change the discourse amongst Die Linke of having them become more pro-Palestine and be properly anti-imperialist, not to have this stupid contradiction going for them. So I'm at least happy to see that, of seeing a lot of members of Die Linke. Die Linke is also the only party entirely within the Bundestag calling for a ceasefire, regardless of, anti-Deutsch or not. They're also the only party in the only party in the Bundestag calling for no more shipments of arms to Ukraine and stuff like that, that Germany should take a much more sensible position to the war in Ukraine. And yeah, the problem is that they have an organizational problem, and they have really bad optics, I think, too. They're really bad at getting the message across. For example, maybe Lauren from Jacobin did an interview with one of our buddies from a different podcast called Spaßbremse. If you guys want to check that out. Our buddies Ted and Michelle do a very, very, very good podcast, a much more educational podcast about Germany, but interviewed Lauren from Jacobin about working with Die Linke, and Die Linke was going door to door to people, campaigning, saying are you a member of the precariat? And it's just for fuck's sake, come on,
Yeah. Who are you calling precariat, asshole? Get out of here. the door in your face.
Push them off the doorstep. Yeah. Look who's precariat now. Yeah. So cautiously optimistic about them, but what can you do? What can you do?
Well, I do have one more thing, because I just talked. Ciarán had me on Corner Späti to talk about one of his favorite bits of European culture, the Eurovision contest. And I understand that I've been following this a little bit, that there is a little bit of drama about Israel's participation in Eurovision that you wanted to convey to our audience.
Funny when they choose to be European.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. So Eurovision, huge song contest. It's great fun. It's the ultimate example of European culture, fake tan, sequins, flashy beats with A2 English. It's wonderful. I strongly recommend. But
it's like the 90s never ended in the Eurovision.
It's so good. How dare you?
I say that positively.
Oh, fair enough. Has a higher ratings viewership than the Super Bowl kind of thing, because it's simultaneously
all of Europe gets together to watch countries compete in a song contest.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah,
and
it's great.
It's wonderful. But the BDS boycott has been officially called to not watch it this year, because they have not kicked Israel out. And okay, the saga of them trying to participate this year has been hilarious, mainly because I think it's obvious to anyone who's obsessed with this that they were trying to get themselves kicked out, because they knew it was going to be a fucking optics disaster. They're literally going to Malmo in Sweden to prove to viewers at home in Israel that Western Europe probably does not support their efforts, and just eat shit and probably have the stage rushed. But they initially submitted 2 songs. The first song that they were really hoping would make it through was called October Rain. And
all right. If that was a Drake and Future song, that would rip, but it isn't.
Or Guns N' Roses for that matter.
Yeah, I'm just imagining Israeli
the sequel to
Israeli / wandering out of a settlement house in the West Bank with a guitar.
And they submit this song, and it's rejected, obviously, because it's too political. Their backup song is rejected because it's too political as well. That song was called Dancing Forever. And that sounds kind of fine until you realize
it's about Judge Holden.
Yes. They keep bringing up this imagery in the lyrics of angels, and it's clearly about the festival that Hamas attacked, basically ended up attacking. So that's also rejected. And they were basically saying in the press very loudly that we will not back down. We want these songs in that we know won't get submitted, until on Saturday, March 2nd, when it looked like Iceland was about to send like an Icelandic Palestinian act. The president of Israel intervened at the national broadcaster and told them to rewrite the song. Herzog fucking came down and told them to rewrite October Rain, now called Hurricane. Because he's got to still keep...
It's the 7-minute Bob Dylan song they're
doing. They rewrote it like 4 times, rejected 3, and now they've been accepted. Because the fucking president had to intervene and be like,
That's
you
amazing.
were going to this contest.
What is Germany's selection this year? What
dog shit.
Dog shit, like every single year. They should be ashamed. See, that's the thing, is that I was hoping that Israel was going to just like either be kicked out or whatever, this and that, and then Germany was going to be like, you know what? Eurovision's anti-Semitic. We're stepping out too, and we would have gotten rid of everyone would be like, yeah, finally, we don't have to watch you just dog, because like Germany is on the, like, as I call it, like the Eurovision Security Council, where they automatically get in.
Yeah, they pay for it, so we let them go directly to the final. Along,
and it's
with
always
France
like they had a fucker with a fucking ukulele 2 years ago. I don't need that.
Last year was like a goofy metal track. Something like that.
Lords of the Lost, They're
that
like,
was
what
them
if
going.
We could do Rammstein, but like, you know, not be problematic.
It was. We have Rammstein at home.
You literally do.
But not that one. Another Rammstein that doesn't get that the Nazi symbolism is ironic.
Chris, can we close out with Du hast on this episode?
Du hast.
I'll play a clip of Du hast, but I want to go out with the Finnish Eurovision song from last year, because I actually think it's a banger, and I'm looking forward. I've been Eurovision pilled, and I'm looking forward to watching this year.
Well, I mean, I'm in the press. I'm looking at a bottle of Eurovision pills here. I'm considering taking it, but I gotta say, if they let Israel in the Eurovision Song Contest, America should get a fucking entry as well. I say, let America into Eurovision. I'm boycotting it until America is allowed to do a fun song.
The problem is that America would do it wrong, thinking that they'd be like, well, we're the best at pop music and we're going to win. And then you'd be like, but you're not like weird. And as Ciarán calls it, the like fuckable grandson thing.
Yeah. There are 2 people watching this show, and it's like gay viewing parties in the West, and then like babushkas in the East who have nothing better to do. So you need a really attractive man who looks like he would be a good grandson and he would call. So you need the fuckable grandson if you want to win. I don't think America can produce a fuckable grandson.
No, this is what they've taken from us.
We're a nation of uncles, cousins, and nephews, not
like Europe is funny because it'll be blissfully like a homophobic country, but they can just kind of like just assume that gay people don't exist. Americans know that gay people exist, and they're just homophobic.
So like they haven't found out that Liberace is gay yet. They just think he's a nice guy who plays the piano.
Half of Europe watches 2 grown men make out on stage every May, and they're just like, this is the straightest thing I've ever seen in my goddamn life.
Yeah. Sergey and I used to do that every Wednesday, you know.
Absolutely. It's just being Italian.
It's just the Bruderkuss, or whatever the fuck the thing's called. Yeah, sozialistische Gruß on my bro.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun. Like, I mean, like America could do it. Like 2 years ago, San Marino bought Flo Rida to do a verse on their like entry. Yeah, so it can happen.
Bringing in some ringers from like Florida. Okay. Nick, Ciarán, the show is Corner Späti. If people would like to listen to some more of your podcast, where should they go?
Well, you can go to our wonderfully named URL, operationglad.io. I can't believe that domain was free, but we got it. It's just about being happy with your friends. And 2 episodes a week. You know how it works.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us today. I want to wish you the best of luck. You know, it's the 2020s right now, so really best of luck to Germany as we go into the 30s and 40s of this century. All my best to
see
you.
How things shake out.
Yeah,
100-year loop, baby.
All right, gang, that's it for us today. Till next time, bye bye.
Ciao.
Bye bye.